Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting online event from the Oxford Guild with our Collegium Global Network and our partner societies from leading universities. Today we're delighted to be hosting a special online event in association with StayTouch on the impact of COVID-19 on performing arts and creative industries and the business behind the stage. We're delighted to be joined by our esteemed panelists today, Xander Parish, OBE, Principal Ballet Dancer at the Mariinsky Ballet Company, Philippe Do, an opera singer who's performed at famous venues such as the Bolshoi Theatre and the Palais Garnier, and Nicole Nelson, an American singer-songwriter and activist who was a finalist on The Voice USA in 2012. Thank you all very much again for joining us today and for sharing your time. And I'm going to leave it to Gaurav to take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abbas. I'm delighted to be able to welcome everyone to this event, where we have a pleasure of hosting an amazing panel of artists in their respective fields of ballet, opera, music. I'll begin by briefly introducing myself and my company, StayTouch. I previously worked for 10 years in finance, including 7 years at Goldman Sachs M&A and 3 years in private equity. Then I decided to quit finance and launch my tech startup, StayTouch, based in Los Angeles, focusing on contactless technology and networking, whilst keeping, of course, social distancing at its core. StayTouch is a next generation contactless networking platform designed for our times and definitely the post-COVID-19 world. The demand for contactless tech, as you might witness and guess, is increasing. StayTouch is a unique solution that provides you an omni-channel networking platform for a physical meeting or for a virtual conference. You don't need to shake hands or exchange business cards anymore in an unfamiliar environment, as you can now use a digital handshake from StayTouch when meeting new people and exchanging or adding contacts. We enable you to create more than one profile suited for any kind of different events, whether it's career forums, networking events, or even a personal gathering. Moreover, each time when you add or exchange contacts using StayTouch, it also saves the date, time, and place, providing you an additional memory, remembering who did you meet, when, and where automatically. In short, you can use StayTouch's patent-pending technology and be safe from COVID in your day-to-day life while networking, exchanging, and adding contacts. That's it from me, and without further ado, let's kick off our panel discussion before moving on to our Q&A. And let's get into our amazing stars who are present here and their individual journeys and backgrounds. Ladies first, of course. Nicole, you first started singing at the age of 3, which is amazing. Did you always want to go into music? Could you please tell us more about your journey and as an artist, which included being recognized as a finalist for The Voice USA? Over to you, Nicole.
Thank you. Yeah, I started singing as far back as I can remember, which is pretty far back. And my parents told me that I started singing before I started talking. That was the first thing that they heard from me was music. And it's just always been the most natural language for me, music and dance. That was all I cared about for a long time. And I feel that for me, what led me to The Voice was deciding that I wanted to find a way to make a living using what I loved and doing as little of what I didn't love as humanly possible. So that was a fast track for me to get in front of a large audience, a very large audience. And I was saying before we started that I was reluctant at first, to say the least, to do it. It was a very nerve-wracking decision for me, but I'm very glad that I did.
Thank you, Nicole. And moving on to Philippe, you have undergone a fascinating transformation from moving the world of investment banking to becoming an opera singer. Please, could you tell us more about how and why you made this amazing transition and your experience since making the move to opera?
Well, basically, it's pretty much related to my background because both my parents are from Vietnam. They immigrated to France. And when you're born in such a family from Vietnam, your parents want you to have the best education possible and to have a serious job, no? So I didn't even know you could make a career in entertainment, you know, a dancer or a singer. So my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but my elder brother was already a doctor and my elder sister was a pharmacist. So I said, well, let's do a business school. I quite liked it, actually. I didn't dislike it. But at the same time, they had the three of us study piano because they knew that in good French families, what do people do? They play the piano. They wanted us to do all the things that the right things that should do a French, you know, a French child. So, and in the end, when I started to learn the piano, I liked it very much, much more than my studies. And so I kept it in the back of my mind that maybe I should do something professionally there. But my parents didn't allow me. So I went into business school. And then because I graduated, then I went to a bank. And after 2 years, I thought, I started to take voice lessons during my paid holidays, and I quite liked it. And I had some kind of, I was good at it, let's put it like this. And my boss at the bank told me, well, if you have a talent, you should try and go to the States, to Juilliard, and try to do something. So he paid me, well, I took a sabbatical, but he told me that if it would not work out, I could always come back to the bank. And he gave me a scholarship to pay my tuition fees. So I'm very grateful. And I never came back, but there was never a moment where I really decided to make a big jump. It's just, okay, I'm going to try. If it's not working, I'm coming back. And after 5 years, I just realized, oh my God, I'm an opera singer. I mean, I'm working professionally and I never got back to the bank. But always in the back of my mind, I say, if it's not working, I can go back to the bank. Now it's a bit too late now, I guess.
Well, that's definitely very fascinating, and all the stories. So of course, no regrets of going back to banking. Definitely not. In the opera is great for you.
Maybe I might be richer if I were still in the bank, probably. Sometimes I must say that I love opera, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I miss some of the intellectual challenges you could have at the bank. But sometimes it can be very dry to be an opera singer. It is sometimes very dry. I mean, I love singing, but
it's a great field.
Thanks. Sometimes.
Absolutely. No, thanks. Xander, your career path is amazing and full of inspiration for the audience. You initially wanted to be a cricketer, but decided to pursue ballet. You were scouted and became the first British dancer at the Mariinsky Ballet Company. And more recently, you were awarded an OBE. Could you please tell us a bit about your journey and growing up in Yorkshire to gracing the stage at St. Petersburg?
Well, thank you very much for the introduction. It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight. So yes, when I was a child, I was very active. I lived with my mum and dad and sister in Yorkshire, in the UK, and my mom took me to every activity she could think of: football, cricket, tennis, everything. I was very sporty as a kid. I loved cricket. It was my passion. Being a Yorkshireman, cricket is a big deal in England and in Yorkshire especially, and it was my dream to be a cricketer. I used to practice and practice and practice. And then one day I saw my sister when I was 8 years old doing a school show, dancing. I turned to mom and said, "Why is she on stage and I'm sat on a chair doing nothing? I want to do that too." And so I started doing ballet as well. But for me, it wasn't. I didn't know what ballet was. I saw it as a performance, similar in a way to being on the cricket pitch and performing a cricket. It's just performance. So I don't know. It was the performance aspect that really attracted me to the art form. And then I went to the Royal Ballet School, joined the Royal Ballet Company, and yeah, eventually I joined the Mariinsky Theatre in Petersburg. So that was a story in itself.
Thank you, Xander. And of course, being awarded an OBE, it's a great achievement.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was for relations between the UK and Russia in cultural relations. So I was actually very honoured to receive that. It was more important, I think, than just my actual dancing. It had a purpose behind it, and it was a really nice thing to receive. I was very honoured.
Absolutely. Congratulations again. So thanks. Thank you all for sharing your stories, amazing journeys. And as we know, like, of course, the current topic is also regarding what has been going on in the world with the COVID. Everyone in performing arts has faced unprecedented disruption due to this COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, you as an artist and we as an audience, we have definitely, we love performing arts, we want to see it, and it's been missing. And therefore, we want to take this opportunity and to understand from your perspective, how has the industry been impacted and how do you see the short to medium term evolution in the industry? So the first question, which I'll take for the panel, is how has the COVID-19 impacted you all personally? Have you built a daily routine during lockdown and the time away from the stage? Anyone who wants to go ahead first? Nicole, Philippe, Xander?
Sure, I can say, for instance, when the lockdown hit here in Russia, I was mid-flow in many performances. I had a very busy period at that time, and I was rehearsing and performing for probably every day for 9-10 hours a day at a particular point. And suddenly the lockdown hit, and the next day I couldn't come back to work. So at first it was actually very relief. I had some time to take a rest. I was exhausted. I hadn't rested for about, I don't know, a couple of years probably. I haven't taken a rest, and so right then I could actually take some time and actually sort my body out, which I had a few niggles to take care of, and a bit of rest actually really helped my body. And I found myself actually enjoying the time off. But then after a couple of weeks, obviously, you start to wait and start to miss the stage, miss what you've been trained to do. I mean, we had no idea how long this quarantine would last and what was going to happen at that particular moment back in March. It wasn't clear what was happening and how severe this was going to be. Had I known, I'd been more concerned about the situation at the time. To have had 4 months off from the stage and without shows, without work, I had countless performances, tours, galas, and guesting all cancelled, which had a huge impact on my personal finances, theatre's finances, my colleagues as well. It's been very difficult for the dancers and artists who've been out of work, and also those people who work with the stage as well, stagehands, crew. It's been hard for the industry. Here in Russia, we haven't had a scheme like in the UK where they've had furloughing. There's none of that. There's no shows, so you don't get paid. Simple as that. We had a small retainer, but it wasn't anything comparable to a usual salary. So that was difficult, of course. In terms of personal health, fitness, and dancing ability, to be a ballet dancer, you have to keep yourself really sharp and in shape. And to sit at home and not go outside was taking its toll on my personal fitness and stamina, especially. So I decided that I had to do some exercise. So I would run outside. Before, my training regime would keep me fit, but then I had to figure out how to do it without training. So I started my own training regime, doing running and doing exercises in my apartment. Lots of using your own body weight for exercises and stretching and things that I would have done normally in the theatre as part of the theatre's regime, but I started to learn to do my own thing and take care of myself a bit better. So actually, in a way, I've learned a lot through this period of how to take care of myself and be more independent in that respect. That's been quite good.
Thank you, Xander, for that perspective. Of course, it shows how severe it is. Of course, at some point, and you needed a rest as well. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, the duration definitely keeps it. Same thing, I think, for Nicole, perhaps a bit from your side.
Yeah, I related so much to what Xander was saying in that in the beginning it was, okay, well, this is a pause, an unexpected pause. And for me, I'm a singer and bass player in a band called Dwight and Nicole, and we had an album coming out in the spring and tours set up all over the country, and some plans to go overseas as well. And so it was supposed to be 2020, this big year of all of this new stuff and new music and touring. So in March, when that started to get canceled, I didn't know what was about to happen, but I started to just sort of prepare myself mentally for anything. I felt that the best way, as an artist, You know that there are these huge waves, tidal waves that we have to ride that we have no control over at all. And so I started to prepare myself for whatever might come, and which took a lot of inner work. I started to do a yoga practice every day. I woke up every morning and said, who am I today? What is my purpose today? And that, I feel that kept me sane, because it was really challenging as the weeks rolled on, as the months rolled on, and specifically here in the States, witnessing the civil unrest. And every time I went on my computer, I felt like I was traumatized, and I had to process all of this intense stuff in addition to not knowing what was about to happen. So it just was a matter of choosing, is this an opportunity or is this downfall? That's the challenge, is it's both of these things. And so doing the inner work to remain balanced in a state of chaos, you always have to go within. And so I went within, and this actually, financially, it was extremely difficult and hit hard, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, it was a gift. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying thanks, Nicole, for sharing your thoughts, and definitely we can understand the pain and all things which goes with it, and of course the spiritual journey comes with it. Yes, Philippe, yes. Perhaps you have something to add?
No, actually, like Nicole, I started to practice yoga every day, just to find a routine to, just to keep you busy during the day. And opera singers are a bit different. We don't need to train our voice every day like dancers. Like a dancer has to train his body. And for us, not talking, not singing is quite good, actually. Of course, 3 months is a bit too long a time. And pretty soon what appeared to me like it was nice to have unexpected holidays turned out to be cancellations in successions of contracts. So now up to March 2021. So now you have the stress, the financial stress, of course. But at the same time, it brings you back to why do I miss now in my life, now that I cannot perform? And you realize, myself, I realized that I really love singing, and that I would accept to sing for less money as well than I'm taking now, because that's the main problem linked with the COVID crisis, that culture is seen as too much expenditures now and not economically viable. So people say we need to relaunch maybe this kind of industry, and culture seems a bit secondary. And opera costs too much, which I do agree on that. And then you must take individual responsibility to keep the entertainment business afloat, basically, not even relaunching, but afloat, because maybe in a year's time, it will be too late and all opera houses will have disappeared. So for me, it's more on a macroeconomic level that I see that. Myself, now I have 30 years of career, so if I have to stop singing tomorrow, it's not so dramatic. But it's more dramatic, much more dramatic for younger ones who will not have the possibility to perform anymore, and more dramatic for the audience who will not be able to see opera or ballet or shows anymore. And culture is so vital to our society.
Well, Philippe, absolutely. At least I can say, perhaps, and I'm pretty sure about our audience as well, none of us want any of performing arts to disappear, because that's such a vital aspect of our society and of our cultural upbringing, and it links us to our history, present, and future. So definitely something which we don't want. And that brings a good transition to our one of our questions we have received is, we have started to see some digital innovation in the creative industries, and performing arts appear. What do you think the potential is like for virtual performances moving forward? Do you think that there is finding an alternative solution if, let's say, the COVID continues, but there's an alternative arrangement where people can watch through virtual conferences or something like this?
Yeah, I think sorry, guys. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'll be quick. I don't think that digital can replace the experience of a live performance at all. But I think it can spread the word of the level of quality of what you're putting out. So for me personally, I noticed that our audience has grown so much because so many people are seeking something that feels tangible. So they're finding what I'm doing, so I can take my efforts to make sure that the digital version of myself, my digital calling card, is actually representing something that's compelling. So I'm putting my words onto the screen, not so much in song right now, and finding ways for people to be able to see what it would be that they would hear and feel at a show. It's just a matter of switching what it is that you do as an artist. It's still the same one thing, and you have to kind of rotate it and see, well, how can I use this lens to bring people to what I do? And then we do a very different looking show. We've been using a local space as a drive-in theater space in Vermont, and so hundreds of cars can come, and each car can have 4 people, and so we're able to promote a show like that. That's a socially distant show, which is very costly because there's so much to think about with the regulations regarding COVID. So it's a matter of getting to the numbers of people so that you can get to the numbers that you need to afford to put on a show like this, and just reframing the entire thing and looking at it differently.
There's a hope, Nicole. Thanks. Please. Xander, you were saying something?
Yeah, I can't agree more with what Nicole said. I was exactly the same vein of what she wants, what she said as well. You know, the online version of our live shows, it's a wonderful tool, I think, to create new audiences, but it can never replace the real thing. The effect, the experience of being in a live performance can't be replicated when you actually have that physical music around you, the space, the visuals, obviously the Mariinsky, in fact, during this period has put a lot of the content on YouTube each week, the new premiere, and they've had huge responses from audiences who've watched this and been very grateful for the free content. And I think in a way there's been a great advert for the theatre. This is what the Mariinsky's, and I know the Opera House in London too is in the same thing. And so I'm hoping that this is actually garnering a new generation of audiences for the future and building, setting foundations for the next generation of ballet and opera lovers to come forth and to, once they've got a little bit hooked on what they see online, to come experience this when they can safely in the flesh, so to speak. So I'm really hoping that this, I think the arts have always thrived when there's been difficulties and problems, and I think the same thing here. The heat's been turned up. It's been a difficult time for the arts. It's currently, right now, we're in the furnace. I hope that the heat will create something beautiful, and we'll see fruits in the future years to come as a result of what's happening now. New ideas, new platforms, new ways of presenting our art forms. I hope we'll see great development coming forth in the future.
Fingers crossed, Xander. Absolutely. Looking forward for all that. Absolutely. Philippe, something from your side, perhaps?
No, I completely agree with Nicole and Xander. And on top of that, for opera singers, the vibration of the voice, which is the whole point of the art of opera singing, you can only experience in live theater through a recording. It's not the same thing. I've got so many examples of friends who, they told me when I'm in a hall, I can feel the vibration of the voice going through my body, and it's totally different. I didn't think that it was something like that. So opera you can get acquainted to it through a recording, a DVD, but it's a physical experience. Definitely, you have to be in a theater. And on top of that, I think with the digital broadcast or streaming of performances, there's a question of quality, of added value. You really need to make a special product when you want to broadcast something, because if it's only filming a performance and transmitting, there's no point, I think. And on top of that, there are always the question of copyrights, which is a bit tricky. So it should not be overlooked, I think, as well.
Absolutely. Like being an avid fan of performing arts in all the spheres, I completely agree. Like the physical experience, you just cannot replace it. So yeah, let's hope that we all can see you very soon back on the stage. So moving on to another question, which is, we know like we have been seeing some recovery. There has been some lockdowns which have been eased. And what is your view of this initial stages of recovery? And will you see any lasting changes that has been communicated to you via your theaters or via your own experience or your band? Have you taken any of those considerations?
Personally, I haven't played in a club, although there have been offers to come and have socially distanced audiences. I think that for me, and this is completely a personal decision, there's no judgment at all. I feel like we all have our own paths and our own choices that we can make, and what works for some won't work for others. But for me personally, it's just COVID-19 is an unknown virus. It's a new virus. It's novel. So that means we don't really know it. We don't know what it's going to do. We don't really know how it arrived here. So it seems prudent to be cautious. So I have, everything is canceled through 2021, similarly. And so it's time to take this, crumbling mess and do something completely new, which is the job of the artists. That's literally what we're here to do, is to take the matter that is here as we see it and translate it into communication that goes beyond languages and goes beyond any barrier, any wall. It's something that is what we're charged to do. So this is when we thrive as artists. Through the challenges, it's always challenging to be an artist. You're always taking something that's there and turning it into something alive and new. So that's the added challenge of this moment. It's, for me, I'm not comfortable being in an inside place. I don't know what that's going to do to the audience and me down the line. So we do drive-in shows. We do them very infrequently, and in the meantime, we'll promote them as much as possible online.
Of course, all very absolutely credible like fears we have, all of us has, when we go indoors or anything to have that thing. Absolutely. So, yeah. Thanks. Xander or Philippe, do you want to come in?
Yes, absolutely. I feel very fortunate that the Mariinsky Theatre has decided to, well, one of the first theatres to open for live performances in Europe, certainly. And we started already a few weeks ago with gala concerts, which were put on for a reduced audience. Every other seat was sold in the theatre. Audience members were screened entering the theatre with temperature checks. They were given brand new masks and gloves to enter the theatre with, and there were no intervals, so they weren't able to mix with each other, except for those who they sit next to, obviously with a seat apart. And I mean, those audience members who came, they made a choice that they were happy to do that. They bought tickets and they came and watched, and that's their choice to make. As a performer, I'm not scared to get on there and get back to work. I know there are risks, but for my art form, with the correct measures in place to safely to take care of ourselves as safely as possible. We do have all the hand gels, we have all the masks, we have all the measures in place for safe rehearsals and safe working conditions in the theatre. I'm happy that it's been able to come back together quite quickly. But what I wanted to say was that the reaction of the audience, particularly after our first concert, we've done already 9 or 10 since we opened the theatre a few weeks ago. The audience, even though a reduced audience in a huge hall, you'd think it'd be quite quiet. They went nuts. Like we were so touched. Us, the artists, at the end, we were still on stage, lined up to our bow, and we were like, "Wow!" It was just the love and the respect and the gratitude from our audience that we'd given them a show, and I think it was a glimpse of light, a glimpse of hope in this dark time that they just hadn't seen for a long time, and it seemed to they just seemed to give it back to us, many fold over in their own gratitude, and the way they just applauded the performance. It was actually a touching moment, because it was like suddenly a little light end of the tunnel for them. Maybe they hadn't been at work either for the past 4 months, and maybe they had difficult times, or suddenly had a splinter of hope. They could come to the theatre and feel like normal again, and it seemed to lift their spirits. And they certainly gave us a wonderful ovation, which really encouraged us. We were doing something for our city and for our audience members who are regulars here, and I was so happy to be able to be involved in that. I mean, I know there are risks involved, but I think as long as we take the most precautions we can and be careful, I think people need hope and need things to enjoy and look forward to. I can't quote it perfectly, but I did hear a quote about Winston Churchill back in the Second World War, when people wanted to, in Parliament, wanted to cut funding to the arts and get rid of the arts completely to save money. And he said, well, what are we fighting for? And something like this. And, you know, I think the arts culture of any country is part of its jewelry, part of its treasure, and it should be protected and preserved as much as possible. And I think it adds more to any country than can be taken away by savings, you know.
Couldn't agree with you more, Xander, on that. Definitely art and like performing arts definitely provides us that perspective, as I started this discussion with, that gives us hope, that takes us out from temporary misery, at least, and gives us a window of which we can live and dream. Absolutely. So, yeah, thanks. Philippe, do you have anything to add?
As far as opera is concerned, I mean, so far nobody has found the proper rules to go back to performing operas, because there are some rules that wind players in the orchestra have to wear a mask, which is not so convenient to play the flute, for example, so they cannot play in the orchestra. And there is now a law in France, for example, saying that a singer has to be 3 meters away from the next singer. And for example, I was supposed to do Carmen in next September, and I mean all the love duets, and to kill her, I mean 3 meters away, it seems a little bit impossible to do that. So basically everything is cancelled. So I mean, we still have to think how we can perform operas. I mean, stage version, it's totally impossible. Concert version, it can be a solution, but it's so frustrating. And so basically now you heard that the Met Opera is about to cancel the 2021 season. Paris Opera is doing the same, because there are some operas like Carmen, like all the Wagner stuff. I mean, not with a proper stage, without a proper staging, it's not worth proposing them to the audience, no. And so now it's a bit tricky for opera.
Fingers crossed, Philippe. We just hope that this goes away sooner than ever, and then we all can get back in here to amazing opera, whether Verdi or Wagner or whoever. But yeah, definitely. Okay.
Can I ask Xander a question? Because because in all the operas where I am, they say you cannot sing to your soprano partner, for example. How do you dance a pas de deux now with your colleague? Because you can't wear. I mean, it's not a problem. I mean, or is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, I mean, to do a pas de deux, you can't be 3 meters apart. It would be, you need extensor arms. It would be impossible to do the partnering. How they've done it, they have tested all the dancers who are working together have been tested for COVID, and those who are clear. They found nobody in our troupe who had COVID, but everyone was tested. After the test, you're allowed to work together, and then after I think it's after 12 days, or 14 days, something like this, you're retested again, and rehearsals keep going. And yeah, there are hand gels in the studios, so you can come in, take off your mask, of course, because you can't do ballet in mask. You'd be suffocating. You need to breathe. So use your hand gel. And we do our rehearsals together, and we all trust that we've all been taking good precautions to keep safe. And since having our tests, we're all clear, and so we're trusting each other. There's a mutual trust between us. We're taking the sensible, necessary steps to keep each other safe as well as ourselves.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Let's open up the questions from our audience. So we have here, I think, the first question from Michael, Fine Art, Oxford. Do you think there is enough diverse representation of people in the arts? What more can and should be done to increase representation in creative industries?
That's a good question. I can go. I do not think that is, we're not seeing representation across the board. I mean, of course, because so many of these industries are run by lots of times older people and coming from a different time and a different era of control and dominance in business. So we're seeing things starting to change now. I mean, and when I say now, I mean in the last 50 years. In America, I can only speak for what I know. Here in the States, you know, post-civil rights movements, there has been an effort put into place to bring in more diversity. And that certainly over the last few months, you know, everybody being home, starting to sit around and look at things and say, well, what's wrong and how do we fix things? There are lots of solutions coming up amongst the chaotic moments, and amidst the turmoil, there are solutions. And so there is an effort being made now to diversify across arts. There are people who are speaking up on this now, and there are people who are listening. I think some people for the first time actually listening and actually taking action, because it is a systemic problem and it needs a conscious look and saying, well, this is an issue. It's not just, well, these are the best people and that's why they're here. It's like, well, we have to look at how they got there and how their parents got there and address the entirety of the thing. I'm on the Arts Council in Vermont, and it's something that specifically over the last few digital meetings that we've had and digital conferences that we've had, we've been talking about how do we address this? How do we make sure that the people of all diverse backgrounds are represented properly? And it's a huge undertaking. It's huge. And it's scary. It feels like, what if we don't do this right? What if it hasn't been done right in the past? It's been done wrong so many times. Not that, there's right or wrong with art, but it's certainly in representation and in business there is. There is a right and there is a wrong. And the way that we have been doing things as a whole, certainly in the States, has been one-sided primarily. And so the diversification it's like a living document. It's something that is a constant conversation, as exhausting as it is for some of us to have that conversation constantly. It needs to be addressed, in everything that we do and every action that we take, from the roots to the treetops in this business. So I think it's a work in progress.
Thanks, Nicole. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And I don't know if whether Philippe or Xander has anything else to add.
Yes, very, very well said by Nicole there. Yes, of course, more needs to be done. The arts have to be diverse, and it's where a lot of the fruit comes from. There's so many exciting things out there. You got to remember, when I was a kid 20 years ago, even doing ballet as a boy had a stigma attached to it. And so even just because I was a boy, there was a problem with boys doing ballet. It was often a joke. But things have moved on a lot since then, even. And now even boys can do ballet now, and it's not looked upon the same way as it was 20 years ago. So things are step by step. Things obviously are too slow. Things need to be speeding up. But I hope we can see by looking back where we've come from in ballet. There's still a long way to go. But even from that small step, even just being a problem being a boy doing ballet, next step, of course, is diversity. So I hope we're heading in the right direction, at least, but even it is too slow right now.
Let's hope we're all in the right direction, absolutely. Okay, Philippe, do you have anything, or should I take another question? Next question?
Yeah,
sure. So the next question comes from Aubrey, Classics, Cambridge. Do you think the closure of major performance spaces has made people realize how much the arts could or even has been taken for granted?
Well, I certainly hope that these, having had arts available, theatres, shows, performances everywhere, and suddenly not available, it's human nature to want what they can't have, right? And so I hope maybe once this is all over, someone's going to say, let's go to the theatre just because we can, And so I hope things will, like major, not just major venues, but even smaller ones too, smaller theatres and concert venues, and maybe the more unusual venues will have an influx of people who actually, because they can use them, will, and won't just forget about them and say, we'll do it next year, or we'll do it in the summer, or we'll go, and now they can do it now. Now's the time. So, I mean, obviously when this whole thing is past. So I hope people will make note in their head that when things are available, they can actually enjoy them, make the most of these opportunities while they have them. Once they've been taken away, that's when you notice the void. So yeah, I think that's a great question.
I agree on that. My experience with the drive-in show that we did on the 4th of July here was that there was almost no dry eye in the audience at the end. I mean, we were in tears, they were in tears. It was electric. It was palpable feeling, which I feel like is what I imagined that it would be like when I was a kid. I thought it would be this electric, palpable thing to be on stage and to be putting out our sound, and the sound is moving through people's bodies and they're reacting, and it would be tangible. And as time has gone by, certainly in the last few years, people are taking selfies while they're watching. It's so disheartening to see that. And so this kind of cut that off completely. And people realize, well, man, I've been half living my life. I've been 1 foot in this on my screen and 1 foot watching the show. And now it wasn't like that at all. We had hardly any photos because everybody was so present and so grateful, and that was tangible for sure. People are appreciating it, like Xander said, what you don't have, what you can't have, you want. So that's my experience.
I think also it makes us realize that sometimes we take art as a commodity. You buy a ticket and it's just like a good you buy, and you don't realize the value of it. And it makes us understand that it's real. That's the real oxygen of our life. When during the lockdown, you could not talk about, like, okay, you were working, but I mean, the only way to escape the situation was to read a book, and then you realize how much it means more than just reading. It's just a space of liberty, a space where you can lead your emotions, your life. And arts is like this. It's not only to buy a ticket and travel somewhere to see a very good performance, sure, but it's much more than that. It's a space of liberty. And we were deprived of physical liberty with this lockdown, and somewhat of mental liberty as well, I think.
Absolutely, completely understands, and I hope we all realize the values, and we definitely, all of us have realized it, and let's get back you to the theater as soon as possible. Yeah. Okay, moving on to the next question. So we have the next question from Boris, Law UCL. How do we encourage aspiring young artists to still pursue careers in the arts when the impact of COVID-19 economically and socially could put many off?
I've a thought about that. I think that pursuing a career in the arts is secondary to pursuing the passion of the arts. And this is a really wonderful time, actually, to step into art, because you're not looking at it saying, do I have to play? How many weddings do I need to play in order to make my rent? Like, that's not how to do it. It really is about going within. It's about taking in what you're seeing and then going within and translating it through your body and through your sounds and through your creations. And we're all creative beings. We're all artists. And so we all are being charged now to create the new world. There's no more grand form of art than what we're all in. And those of us who have been practicing, where we have to stand up even more so as leaders, as people who have done this kind of creation from ground zero up. and to recreate now. It's so important. As an artist, that's really, that's more important than financials. That doesn't mean that you don't have to pay your bills, but to look at it from that perspective only, or from that perspective even primarily, I think is problematic. And it's part of why we've seen arts fall off. In a way, we've been focused so much on currency in the form of money. And it's the wrong kind of currency.
And actually, I think it's quite a recent thing that the idea that an artist can live out of his art, most of the artists of the past used to have a proper job to be able to earn money. I mean, Mozart, he was obliged to perform as a little kid, like in a circus for the nobility throughout Europe. And most of the painters, they had to, draw things for magazines. They didn't like to do that, but they have to do that in order to survive. And in fact, this COVID brings us back to our real passion. Is it a real need for us to pursue dancing, singing, or painting, despite all the financial constraints and all the problems? And if it's a real need, then you will do it, whatever. Whatever. There's no choice. You are obliged to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the next question we have is Céline, who is doing MBA at INSEAD. How do we encourage people in the arts to become more environmentally focused? For example, music tours can leave a huge carbon footprint. What can be done to be better?
That's a very good question. For me, we bring our own bottles. This is such a little thing, but every stage is covered in plastic bottles, and throughout the audience, plastic bottles. Like providing these at shows, selling them for people that want to buy them. It takes educating people first, and then being a leader in that. So I think just showing that all the time, as much as possible. You can't fix a whole problem in one day, but you certainly can fix your own mess in a day. And so I think, again, going within and adjusting things. And if you're on a stage, people are watching you. It's for me, I bought these for our bandmates a few years back, and I'm like, this is what we're doing. And I put it in the rider, no plastic bottles. We have our own. And, you could provide one large bottle backstage, but that's it. And just leading by example. I really think that that's the way that we change things like this. You can't yell at people who disagree about it all day. That's not the way.
Right, Nicole. One step at a time, and definitely the environment is the key focus now. Yeah. Okay.
I can talk about my own experience here, because after the crisis, during this crisis, with other French opera singers, soloists, we created an association called Unison, and one of our honorary member is the actual, the present time Minister of Culture in France, and she loves opera. And one of our idea is that we have to stop traveling. I mean, opera singers I'm talking, because we are guesting, for 6 weeks we go to the States, and then we have some rehearsals in between in Europe, and we keep traveling. And we have a huge carbon footprint. And we sent a memorandum to the Ministry of Culture in France saying we have to establish a carbon footprint per show, per production, meaning that you have to use more local singers for secondary roles, shorten the rehearsal period so that people can be all together and not allow people to go from one feat to another, meaning rehearsing in New York and come back for a show in Paris and the next day leaving to Madrid, this kind of thing. So have a clear schedule and only hire the people who would abide by this schedule. Try to not build the sets of production of opera in Finland when you're performing something in Madrid. Use as much as possible co-production, this kind of thing. And this is and use and maybe reestablish in France what dancers have, dancer companies, artists who are attached to a theater, so that you don't need to call guests from all over the world all the time, even for roles that could be cast locally. And that's what we encourage at our association now.
Great initiative, Philippe. Thanks. Moving on. So we have another question coming from Anna, who is studying music at Oxford. This question is for Xander and Philippe in particular. Your audiences are usually above certain age ranges. How do we encourage more young people to engage with ballet and opera, etc.?
Maybe I can start with that one. So thank you for your question. This is super important. But these days, it seems that social media is having a very positive effect on engaging younger people with the ballet. I know me and my fellow dancers at the Mariinsky, we all try to engage our potential audiences with our posts on social media, clips of ballets and rehearsals and the process of working towards performance as well as the actual show itself. People actually, we get a lot of feedback from those who follow us who are fascinated by not just the performance, but by the process of how we work, our lives, what it takes to become a dancer and this sort of thing. And so even the theatre itself has started to cotton onto this and try to get us involved with their own social media outreaches. During this pandemic, the Mariinsky has, as I was saying, we've done a lot of online performances of our past recordings to come online. And this has been primarily viewed by a younger audience than they would buy a ticket. And this seems to have had, I hope, an effect of sowing seeds for future audiences. So I really hope this online push will have had produce fruit for our future audiences. But yeah, it's very important to get people to engage with ballet and opera now while they're young. And I know in Russia, I'm very lucky here because culture's in the blood here. In Petersburg, most people here in the city have been taken to the ballet at Christmas by their babushka. You know, it's like a tradition here. You can see Nutcracker. So most Petersburgers have seen ballet from being young. It's like a tradition. And ballet here is on television a lot, opera as well. Valery Gergiev, our director, has made huge pushes to get ballet and opera out, not just in Petersburg, but into Russia and around the whole country, to the Far East and Vladivostok, to Vladikavkaz, to all little places around all of Russia. And so here in Russia, I can certainly comment on the push that's happening to try and get culture to be out, and it seems to be working. If I go out front to watch a show in the theatre here, there's a lot of young people watching the ballets now. People are coming as couples, young in their 20s. I mean, we have a lot of young couples and young people watching ballet, and those who tag me on social media after shows are almost always young people. Between the ages of late teens to early 30s, a lot of people tag me and my colleagues after shows, and those who tag us are those who are using Instagram, using Facebook and stuff, and it's mainly that age group. So that's good to see.
Thank you, Xander. Anything you want to add, Philippe, perhaps?
Yeah, in terms of the theatre, they need to lower the price as well. The ticket opera is so expensive. Ballet is not so expensive, but opera is totally too expensive for younger people to go. And there should be more music at school, first of all, because the younger you expose the kids to music, all kinds of music, the more interest they will develop during their teenage, during the course of their life, of course. And opera is too much linked with older people because it's too elitist, especially in France. And it's too elitist because the building is a bit impressive. There is a decorum, there is a tradition to dress up, and you must show the people that they can go in jeans to the opera. Myself, when I go as an audience, I go in jeans because that's not well, sometimes I dress up if I want, if it pleases me, but you need to realize that you should go to an opera house like you go to a movie theater, like it is being done in Italy. So it's mostly culturally, and you have to explain to the young, and maybe us as well, the responsibility of opera singers to go and to accept the fact, some comments that it's ridiculous, the soprano is fat, you look ugly when you sing, you shout, you're not singing, and then try to explain in school what is it all about and why you have all those cliches going around music and opera in particular.
Thank you. The next question we have is from Lee, who is studying history at Harvard. Would you say the work behind the stage is as or more important as what happens on stage?
I don't know that it's more important than what happens on stage. I mean, that what happens on stage is sort of the point of why you put in all that work. But it is as important because you can't have one without the other. You know? You need to put that time in and be completely obsessed, maniacally obsessed, in order to be as great as you want to be. You know, that's my experience with that.
Thank you, Nicole. Next question is from Igor, who's studying modern languages at Edinburgh. What advice would you give to young people who have the talent required but lack confidence to pursue careers in the arts?
I mean, I think it's a very tricky question because you can lack confidence for several reasons. I might sound a bit harsh. You might lack confidence because, in a way, you don't work enough. You don't, because you know that you don't put everything you need to put in to succeed, and you can lack confidence in a good way, but in a way, you always have enough confidence to go and try. If this percentage of lacking confidence is too high, it is because somewhat you find an excuse for yourself. I might sound, this is my experience, but I found everyone who wants to do this job have a certain amount of confidence which can be shaken by some circumstances, which is totally normal. But in the end, you're the only person who can trust in yourself, because other people around you will doubt your talent, doubt your ability, and will know better than you. Only you is your own teacher and your master. And so if you really lack confidence, don't even go into it, I would say. But that's my experience. I'm a bit hard on that, maybe.
I love that.
Yeah.
You have to do the inner work. You have to put in the inner work. And if the confidence is blocking you, then you need to dismantle that wall yourself. That's just the way it is.
Thank you. Next question is from John, who is studying law at London School of Economics. Do you think that social media is a help or hindrance to the arts? For example, TikTok has shown a song can be a viral hit in an unusual way, or YouTube has been used to promote new artists.
I think it can be both. It can be both. It's a tool. I mean, social media is a tool. Like a hammer can be good destruction, or it could be bad destruction. It's in the hands of the people. So, for me personally, using social media to promote has been powerful and wonderful. Also, at the same time, I've seen video of myself late at night at a nightclub sitting in with a band that I didn't know the song, and I had too many drinks and it was a nightmare. And that's out there too. So it can be bad or good. It really is. It's a tool in and of itself.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Nicole said. Absolutely, it can be a very powerful and useful tool. Very useful. I think to get performances advertised and get shows known for the ballet world, it's been very useful for me and for my colleagues to advertise shows we're doing and get audience members to come and buy tickets. For that reason, it's been very useful and can be very, very, very good. I've heard it criticized for reducing quality. People are pushing too much for in the ballet world. Been criticized for people doing great pictures, but I can't actually dance. For instance, they can do a beautiful picture with a great split or something, but the quality of the ballet is not actually there because students care more about getting a good picture than about good training. And so it has to be a balance, of course. Used professionally as professional dancers, I think has a great, as Nicole said, a fantastic hammer to use as a tool. But for younger dancers, it can give an impression of a perfectionist, a level that's not attainable. It's not real. A lot of such things, social media, they're not real. Some are tweaked, photoshopped, people doing great tricks and spins and stuff that maybe they've filmed 30, 40 times to get it perfect. In a show, they can never do it one off. So it can leave an impression of an unattainable level. But that aside, I think the pros, when used correctly, can be very positive.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question. It's from Lela, studying PPE at KCL. To Nicole. I particularly like the voice as it focuses on the sound and less so on the look. Do you think audiences are too caught up in image and consumerism when it comes to the music?
Yes. I do think audiences are way too caught up in image and consumerism when it comes to music. Yes. It's the cross to bear as an artist in this day and age, just as Xander was just saying about, the getting the right photo or whatever. It's true that you can, take an image and turn that into some kind of ideal that people think is, and then the right, promotion can make and tell people this is what it is. This is how you get to this. So you have to look like this and you have to appear like this, and they auto-tune and edit and tons of makeup. I can't tell you how much makeup I was wearing. I was like, why are you putting all this makeup? What is this? This is crazy. Can't I look like a human? It's not okay. But the image is what it is. It's something that, as a young woman, when I was first coming up in this business, I had an offer it was Whitney Houston's former manager. And he loved me. He's like, I think you're the new Whitney. And at this time, Whitney Houston was still alive. So I was like, there's no new Whitney. There's still a Whitney. How can I be the new Whitney? But they're looking for the fresh, young, sexy thing. And so he invited me to a pool party to sing Whitney Houston karaoke in front of Clive Davis in a bikini. And I turned it down. And I was like, the next time I saw him, I had to say, I don't think that this is a relationship that is meant to move forward. And I do think that there's a long line of girls behind me that will jump at the chance to put on a bikini and sing for Clive Davis, Whitney Houston karaoke, but I'm a songwriter. I have, my art is paramount here. So it's not for me. The image thing, just the fact that they wanted me to do that told me that this was a business arrangement that I didn't want to get into. It would just down the line fall apart because we were not in the same wavelength. So he said, your path is a noble path. I was like, I'm not trying to be noble. I'm just trying to be who I am. That's all I have. And so he said, you'll get there, but it'll take 10 years. I have Clive Davis on speed dial. And if we do this in 6 months, you can have a billboard in Times Square and a #1 song. And I just thought that the price was too much to pay. The image is you, really. I mean, it's a snapshot of you. It's a one aspect of a whole holographic thing. It's like one little microcosm of who you are. So if that's what's being put out there into the world, you have to take ownership of it if you want to be a happy person doing art that means something to you. So for me, yes, image is way too big of a thing, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be led around by that. You can choose to decide for yourself what your image is and what that means for you. And your audience will find you, especially in this day and age. Put it out there. Your people will resonate with you and they'll find you. So.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for that perfect, very good answer for integrity and everything. Absolutely. Thanks. The next question we have is from Asher, studying engineering at Imperial. Do you think it is hypocritical of governments to open pubs and bars currently, but not theaters?
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Yes. I mean, here in Russia, theatres are open. We as I was saying, Mariinsky is open with very stringent measures in place, but theatres are open. And people can choose if they want to come to the theatre, they come to the theatre. Like in the UK, you can choose to go to the pub if you want to. Why can't you choose to go to the theatre too, with the correct measures in place? Why reduce the choice? What's the difference? Of course, it should be open.
Thank you. So keeping time in mind, so we'll take another 4 or 5 more questions. So the next question is from Petek, studying opera at Tashkent University. How do you keep yourself motivated in this pandemic? Perhaps.
Well, I guess for me, I know that sooner or later, I'm now back on stage. But during the pandemic, I didn't know when, but at some point, I was going to be back on stage. The longer you leave it, without training and doing your own work, the harder it's going to be. And I knew it was going to be painful to get back into training and get back into shows. Shows are a marathon physically to get through a ballet, through even a simple ballet number on stage is like running a marathon, and it's painful and hard, and it takes a massive amount of energy. And to be ready physically to do that, it kept me motivated, because I knew if I didn't keep myself going, I would just be in so much pain from the training later. So I knew I had to keep going. And plus, actually, like Nicole was saying earlier, it's the passion inside. It's that passion you want to. If you have that desire, you want to motivate yourself. You want to do it. You know it's going to finish sooner or later. Just something inside that just keeps you going, and you want to, because it's part of you.
Thank you, Xander. Moving on, just 4 last questions. So we have from Nikhil, who is studying geography at Durham University. What are the best and worst things, in your opinions, about working in creative industries and performing arts?
Well, quickly, for me, the worst part is the inner demon coming up against feeling like I need to be something that someone else wants me to be, is the quickest way to just cut me off from my muse and my power. So I guess that it's a flipped coin thing. The best part is having a sense of knowing of who I am and why I'm here and what I'm doing, because then anything I create is a true reflection of that muse. If I can disconnect myself from outside sort of, voices that become inside voices, if you let them, I can be who I really am, and then I'm a good artist. I'm being true to myself and speaking from a place of the truth and of power. That's, for me, what is the most motivating thing, to be an artist. You have to, otherwise what else are you doing? You're a mouthpiece for someone else. That's not art,
Thank you, Nicole. Unless any of you, Philippe or Xander, you have anything to add, we'll take another question.
I'd just say, I like to focus on the good things. So the best about working in the creative industry and performing arts, it's such a privilege. We're so blessed. We're on stage, we're performing, we're using the talent we've been given and entrusted with, and be able to hopefully enrich the lives of those who watch us and bring joy to them. That's such a privilege, to be able to bring some pleasure or joy to someone else who watches you, using the talents that God's given you, and you can use these talents and enrich somebody else's life. It's not just all about us, we're giving in our performances, and we hope that those who watch us enjoy it and take something away with them. I think that's a great privilege to remember why we're doing it. We want to, we love to do what we do, but at the end of the day, we think, what other people? Because they want to come to a show. At the end of the day, they've had a hard week or something, they come to a show and they get refreshed on the inside. That's the idea. You know, they have some inspiration, or they get to teleport out of reality to this show for a second, for an evening, and get their words. I think that's a great privilege, in my opinion.
And I would say about the worst thing for me is the ego, because you have to work on yourself. So your own ego is tiring in the end, and you cut yourself. You have a tendency. I have a tendency to cut myself from the others sometimes. Think too much about myself. It's tiring everybody, and me in first place too. So it's something you need to be very careful of, otherwise you end up alone.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the answer. The third last question is from Ivan, studying global politics at Moscow State Institute of International Relations. How has the rise of a social media culture impacted the arts? Do you think footage of things like street ballet can democratize access and create new, younger audiences?
Well, like I've mentioned a bit before already about social media and ballet especially, I think it does reach out to younger audiences, and I certainly think it's creating more, maybe fans at least of ballet. I guess fans are getting to have in the art form. We want ballet to be popular, and therefore, yes, I think social media has impacted the arts a lot. I know there are social media stars rising up in ballet who have huge followings, and if their platform is used correctly, I think it can be used well and used for good to hopefully transfer the fan base into an audience base, and that's the next step, I suppose.
Thank you very much, Xander. Second last question coming from Olivia, who is studying music at Royal Academy of Music. Thank you all for being such inspirations to us. What advice would you give to your younger selves when you were just starting out?
Personally, I would say to be myself. Just be yourself. I know that's so cliche. We've all heard it so many times, but if you don't know how to be yourself, start digging and investigating on that a little bit. You have all the tools at your fingertips today. Google this, you can find resources now. You don't have to have a life coach or perfect parenting or a great mentor. Even you can find out how to get to the core of who you are. Because if you know who you are, then everything else is easier. You can make decisions like this. Does this work for me? Yes. Does this work? No. Then you just make that decision, and then and you're not spending years on this path and wondering how you got there. I think know thyself is the best advice, and I wish that I had gotten that when I was a kid. I did start working on that young. For me, I don't have many regrets as a result of that sense, and if I had it even younger, maybe I would have no regrets. That's my thought on that.
Thank you, Nicole. Nothing further to add. I think the last question we'll take is from Natalia, studying history of art at Yale. What is on your individual career bucket list? What do you hope to work on next and achieve moving forward?
That's a good question.
For me, to sing as long as possible and keep my voice working, even for free. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't have to be related in terms of career, money, or whatever. It's just sing, just the pleasure of singing. Fine for me.
Okay, thanks.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely. Okay. I think that's, unless you have anything, Nicole or Xander, to add, I think that covers our questions. One final question before we end the Q&A is, like, we as an audience, we definitely are looking forward for you to get back on stage. At this stage where there are some lockdowns and it's being eased up, what can we as audience do to help and promote, to help you as an artist and help us performing art in terms of performing arts?
Well, come to our shows when it's safe to do so, when theatres reopen, as they have done here in Petersburg. Buy tickets, come to the shows, support the arts. It's, you know, we go on stage and perform, but with no one in the audience, there's no point. So we need live audience. You know, we've done recordings for you know, broadcast, and often when there's no audience, there's no soul. The soul is often in the audience. A live audience with a live performance is what creates the soul of a production, and I think it has to be together. It's so unique. It's that thing of being a live performance is something so unique. We're there together, and that's a one-off thing. You can rebuild it and watch it again, but it was done then. And that moment when it's being created before your eyes, or done there and then for you in the audience, that's what makes live performance special. I think most touching to someone's heart.
Thank you very much, Xander. So I guess that's mainly for the Q&A part, and I'll pass on to you, Abbas.
Thanks very much, Gaurav, and thank you all very much to our wonderful guest panelists today for sharing their time and insights in what has been a really informative and exciting session. We all look forward to hopefully seeing you back on stage soon. And thank you also to everyone who's been watching and for all your varied and rather challenging questions. We hope you all found it helpful, and we look forward to welcoming you again soon at our upcoming events. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the panel.